Drainage quantities, I would say in this iteration of MicroStation has been brought into the fold with the rest of roadway quantities. So all of this is aimed to getting us consistent with the entire estimate of quantity or estimated quantities report. There we go. But we are going to go through just the background of it as far as what drainage folks are going to have to do to make assignments so that our quantities are reported correctly. So for quantities, item types are the name of the game, and it's separate from hydraulic properties or utility properties or anything else. It's its own a little world of information in a database, such that it does make it difficult for us to translate maybe some information that we've already populated, like it's a J-bottom or those sorts of things in our hydraulic properties are not easily carried over into item types and vice versa. So do kind of keep in mind that distinction. So there's tools that will open up a item types manager, and we'll go through that in an example. And there's just a trick to opening the manager before trying to do anything with it. If you recall, when we were placing our nodes and the feature definitions, that dialog was blank for all the item types that in the pick lists that would have gone to developing the pay item number. It's all because we needed to open up the item types manager first for it to recognize them. So for drainage, the item types are grouped entirely off of the basis of estimates. So that has its own kind of formula or secret sauce of how the pay items are assigned to the various configurations of structures and pipes. So they're all grouped together. The structures themselves, the inlets and manholes, all get into this drainage. No, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Just the drainage inlets make it into the drainage inlet type. So that'll be ditch bottom inlets, curb inlets, grates, etc. Manholes are separate, and then you get a lot more variety as you get into the outfall head wall type structures. Each have their own top level pay item number that is the basis for these groupings. But you don't have to mess with these too much. They are automatically assigned to the feature definition. So at least there's some easy parts in here. So asset manager is kind of the tool and the function that the quantities are developed through. And again, it's not a lot of information that you're going to have to mess with too much, but part of the reporting is that it will automatically calculate the location of an element based off of a assigned alignment. And like I mentioned, we're in a completely separate world from our other properties associated with structures and pipes. So even though we said, oh, it's along the center line of State Road 61 and assigned to those properties, we've got to do it separately here for quantities. But the good thing is there's no mistaking where the location is. This tool will automatically measure where it is along the correct alignment. So we'll walk through some steps to make that assignment so that automated process can work correctly. And we're going to get into that example about how to make those assignments. And there's a custom FDOT quantity takeoff manager tool. taking a little shuttle lunch in our icon there to the right. And this is really just more of an FYI for drainage folks. The overall EOR is going to be responsible for compiling the complete report, of which they can do in one foul swoop with all of these available reports at their disposal. But for QC or other, if you want to check your work, see what it's looking like, there's a procedure in these examples to see what it's going to come out as. So when the spreadsheet is created, this is a snapshot of what all of the summary of quantities reports look like. Going from left to right, there's organized by pay item number, there's a label that it should pick up automatically based off of our pipe numbers or structure numbers. And then the rest is automated from the program. So pay item description, quantities, it automatically measures. This location is pulled during this process as well. But the design notes and construction remarks are both fields that can be edited as we're going through and filling in the item type information. All right, so that's the quick overview. It'll probably make a little more sense once we get in and do some of these examples. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to activate the item types manager so that it recognizes the other item types in this file. So to do that, we're going to go to the Open Roads Modeling, FDOT. This is a new location, so Vern, you may want to correct me if I'm hunting down
the home tab. It's on the home tab.
Thank you. Aha. All right, so home tab, Open Roads Modeling, item types, and the icon at the bottom right will open up the manager. So you should see drainage quantities. It'll, in the pop-up, give you a confirmation that it matches the library. And if for any reason you needed to make a custom pay item number, this would be a way to do it, but really the intent is not for folks to modify those. But just to open it, so now it's live and active. All right, so let's do our first pay item number. I'm going to zoom into our first structure that we placed. That's S101. And I could pull up the little hot menu for properties, but I'm going to open the full dialog here. So as we scroll down, there should be a section for item types and really the name of the item type. So for curb inlet is drainage inlet. So now as we see, the list is available and able to populate. And in this case, it's a type 2, the J bottom. And so we just work our way down the table, and you could see the pay item number beginning to populate, but it needs more information. I think we're less than 10 feet. So there's that last little bit of pay item number. And if we wanted to put in some notes, that'll show up in the summary. Or if it more specifically, anything that needs to be shown in the quantity report can be put here. All right, so we're going to do that same thing to our other structures and pipes. So open up the properties, scroll down to drainage inlet. This is a P-bottom, type 1, less than 10-foot depth. Now the pay item's automatically there. And I'm just going to double check in case sometimes the label doesn't come through all the way. So we'll just tell them in the notes that this is S103. All right, next structure. I'm going to do this in the hot menu. So pull down for this is a option of a cross drain or a side drain. I think we picked cross drain. It's round and 18 inches. So that is the end of our pay item number there. Let's just double check that. Yep, there it goes. There's the full number. All right, so the difference between drainage structures and pipes when it comes to quantities is the item types were automatically assigned with the feature definitions. Not so with pipes. So we're going to go through an exercise to assign that, and we can just demonstrate it by looking at the properties. So there are no sections that would tell us that there's a drainage item type attached to it. So then we activate the attach item from the item types group tool.
Hey, what is the question mark in there, Angela? I mean,
Where's the question?
That was
Yeah,
the ground cover.
oh, okay, gotcha.
Okay.
The ground cover, okay, so that means that they didn't have enough ground cover, is that what you said?
Oh, the exclamation. Yes.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I almost just ignore these. You know, anytime you have notifications in the drainage model, so especially after computing, it'll run through all the validation of the model and tell you any warnings. So anytime there's a warning, then on, I think it's the default level, it'll stay there until you fix it or just want to continue to ignore it or turn it off. So in this case, and if you hover over it, it'll tell you each time what the issue is. So this was the cover constraint. This is the, and sometimes it's hard to get it to trigger there, but they're also available in the notifications tool, has them all listed.
In that situation, that pipe's under the berm, but it thinks it's under the existing ground. That's why it thinks it's missing minimum cover.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, so we are going to attach an item type for these pipes. So drainage pipe is our only option under the quantities. And at this point, I could just attach the item type quality. I can assign an item type, or I can go ahead and fill out the information. So I'm going to do that here. So same kind of menu that we were filling out in the individual properties, we can do to assign these pay item numbers. So as you can see, just pull downs help generate the full pay item number. All right, so you can do this one at a time or as a selection set. Easy enough to do one at a time when you only have 2 pipes. So when I clicked on the pipe, you can see now that the prompt at the bottom of the screen is asking me to identify the element. So it may not have quite identified. There we go. saved. And so now it's reset. So this is where if you wanted to do them multiple times, you wouldn't have to fill it out again. All right, next pipe. So let's check and make sure in the properties. Now we have an item type and a pay item number. All right, so I did mention selection sets to make life easier. So we're going to kind of hit the pause on quantities and just do a basic microstation function that was kind of new to me. Interesting. Learn something new every day. So under utilities views, under the drainage and utilities workflow, you can use the selection set tool and create a query, or create from a query. And since this is all in preface to assigning that alignment information that has to be done to all the drainage elements. So this is a one-stop shop way of doing that. So I want to say all conduits and all nodes. That should pick up what I've got. So you can right-click on a selection set once you've got it. Say select in drawing. And I've got a total of 5 elements. And that adds up to 3 structures and 2 pipes. So we're in good shape. All right, so now we're going to go back to the Home tab of the Open Roads Modeling Workflow and go back to, timeout. We're not there yet. I'm going to pause in MicroStation and then outside of MicroStation through File Explorer, which we're going to browse to our work set, and in the symbology folder there should be a spreadsheet that will help us set up the background to make this assignment for alignment. So in the cell B2, we're going to type in the name of the alignment for State Road 61. That is CL_SR61. And you'll see this option 2 just populated. So it's a kind of an automated spreadsheet. The more alignments you have, the more options it gives you. So there actually is another alignment in this project nearby, even though we're not using it. It won't hurt to set it up. That's US 98. And that's it for this file. We'll just save and close. All right, so now in the Asset Manager, which there might be a better spot for it, but we're in the Home tab, Model Analysis and Reporting group. The Asset Manager is kind of in the dead center. So we're going to open an Asset Definitions file, which is the spreadsheet that we just opened. So got to go up a couple folders to Symbology and then click on the FDOT project. So it recognizes there was definitions for alignment and FPID. In most cases, there's not going to be multiple FPIDs assigned to a single project. but if there was, there's instructions in the quantities manual for that. So we're just going to click alignment. And at the bottom right, we have our assignment mode selections. So we have all of our pipes and structures selected already. So we're going to select add assets to selection set. There we go, top right. And we get a confirmation in our notifications at the bottom, assets added to 5 elements. All right, so now if we go, I guess with our selection set, we could do this in one fell swoop, which was back in drainage, under utilities, selection sets. All right, now they're all selected. Let's open up some common properties. So, of course, a lot of this stuff is going to vary, but what we're looking for is this alignment section, which is currently blank. And since we entered in these 2 values in the spreadsheet, those are our options from the pick list. And once that's set, then we're good to go. You can check it individually. Everything should still be fine. Alignments, State Route 61, and the pay item number is still there. All right, so now if we want to use the Takeoff Manager, we can see what all that work has done for us. So back to Open Roads Modeling, FDOT tab, kind of in the center is the Takeoff Manager. So there's some options as far as what alignment it will calculate things according to. And in our case, we're just going to leave it as all. If you wanted to isolate it to just particular alignments, it could do that. But we'll hit all and we'll just see what happens. So we've got summary of drainage, and it's going to save this as a file in the calculations folder. We want it uppercase, and we want to open it once it processes. So we'll hit compute. This is a warning that whatever file was there before is about to be replaced, so don't overwrite anything important. All right, so here's our automated quantity sheet. So we'll zoom in, look at a bit from left to right. So the pay item number has automatically been assigned or pulled from our pick lists. It does now pull the structure numbers and pipe numbers. That's great. Pay item description number, unit of measure, so your standard quantities type stuff. And then it has calculated these begin and end stations inside. The element ID is unique to the microstation element. So if there were a particular question on a certain quantity, you could do a query or search for that ID. And then lastly, design notes have the text that we typed in. And I'm gonna not save. I think I just saw a question pop up. All right, so there's a question about extending existing pipes and if the tool would work connecting to null structures. I guess we're talking about quantities and how we'd want to model that. So I would take a guess that from a quantity perspective, it would be valuable to put in a null node at the point that new pipe needs to be quantified. That shouldn't affect the drainage calculations and should give a more accurate quantity. Or if things needed, I'd say that's probably the best practice because any manual edits would just have to be propagated through. Did that answer the question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Great. All right. That is basically the end of quantities. The Takeoff tool did have a PDF report that does kind of clean up the Excel sheet automatically. So I'll just do that real quick so you can see what it looks like. Go to the estimates folder. Here we go. So that's what the PDF part of the tool goes to. So there actually is one more thing we should address here. You see, well, maybe not. I think we're good. There is a process for deleting item types that don't have an alignment. In this particular case, it looks like it came out pretty cleanly. But, and I'm not going to crash my computer to do it. I will say there is a kind of a bug just with the Bentley. It ends up assigning an item type separately to this default level that gets placed with the drainage structure. So it actually hasn't been assigned a pay item number or anything like that, but it does have the item type attached. So that can be removed by going through a similar process as attaching an item is to decatching. So the course guide does document that.
Yeah, the reason probably is because we didn't, well, I don't know. It didn't have the alignment information on it, so it didn't show it in the report probably.
Yeah, I think that must be it.
But what's interesting is you did the select all, so the way you did the selection, it didn't select it. So that's interesting. But yeah, we have seen issues with that in the past.
But it
And
looks
Bentley's
like
aware of it.
it looks like this methodology should be pretty functional without having the need to delete those.
And two things, just for future sake, we just kind of went through with Bentley yesterday some of the new features in the next release. And one of them is going to allow us to do sheets in separate files than the model, which will be good. I never did like having them all in the same model. And then the second is it looks like we're going to be able to pull some item type data from the drainage database. So this whole alignment thing exercise, we might not have to do that in the future.
That would be nice.
Yep, but it isn't going to be any time before next summer that will be implemented. So this is what we got to work with. So this is good. We got it documented, and we are looking to improve some of these things for sure.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions before we move on to Chapter 6?